Imagine walking through a season where everything that could break you did. You were surrounded by cruelty disguised as love, betrayal dressed as loyalty, and silence where comfort should have been. The laughter of those who mocked your pain echoed in your nights, and their coldness left wounds that words could never heal. You gave your best, prayed in sincerity, and stayed kind when you had every reason to turn bitter, but it felt like heaven was quiet. It felt like justice had forgotten your name. But my friend, listen carefully. The silence of God is not the absence of God. It is the preparation of something divine, something precise, something unstoppable. There comes a time when God steps out of the shadows, not to explain, but to act. And when he acts, the scales of heaven tilt, and the season of cruelty ends. This new season, the season of God's revenge, is not born out of hatred. It is born out of justice. It is heaven's response to your tears, the divine balance restoring itself. Every sleepless night, every humiliation, every whisper of gossip that tried to destroy your name, God counted them. Not one drop of your pain escaped his notice. And now, the author of your story is picking up the pen again, rewriting the chapter they thought they had finished. There are seasons when the enemy dances because he believes he has won. He looks at your silence and mistakes it for defeat. He looks at your humility and calls it weakness. He looks at your tears and calls them foolishness. But what he forgets is that you serve a God who hides his strength in silence and his justice in patience. You serve a God who waits until the proud have built their own stage, only to remove the ground beneath their feet. This is that moment. This is the divine reversal. The season of cruelty is over. Now comes the season of God's revenge. Do not think revenge as the world thinks it. God's revenge is not to destroy. It is to expose, to elevate, to restore. His vengeance is not petty, it is perfect. When God repays, he doesn't simply return what was lost. He multiplies it. The very same mouths that cursed you will have to bless you. The same eyes that rolled in disdain will watch your rise with awe. The same hands that shut doors in your face will be forced to knock on yours. You see, God allows cruelty not to break you, but to reveal hearts, to separate truth from deception, gold from glitter, loyalty from pretense. The cruelty you endured was a test of character, and you passed it. You did not let hatred change you. You did not let pain poison you. And that is why heaven has declared, enough. The same God who watched your tears in private is now preparing to honor you in public. Every insult will become an announcement of your rise. Every betrayal will become evidence of divine protection, and every cruel heart that rejoiced in your pain will watch God build a table before you, a table of restoration, of peace, of glory. You may have wondered why God took so long. It's because he was building a stage, big enough for everyone who doubted you to witness your restoration. He was letting arrogance reach its peak so that his justice could be complete. And when God moves, he moves in ways that leave no room for coincidence. So do not seek revenge. Do not lower yourself to their level. Let God handle it. His hands are more precise than yours. His timing is perfect. While you were crying, he was counting. While you were hurting, he was writing. While you were losing, he was planning. And now, everything that was meant to bury you will become the very thing that reveals your worth. You are stepping into a divine shift, a season where pain turns to purpose and humiliation turns to honor. The ones who used you will remember your kindness with guilt. The ones who mocked your silence will be haunted by it. And the ones who broke you will watch the God of justice rebuild you higher than before. The season of cruelty is over. The season of divine reversal has begun. And when God rises on your behalf, no enemy can stand, no lie can last, and no cruelty can prevail. Stand still, stay faithful, watch what heaven does next. There comes a moment in every believer's life when the silence of God becomes deafening. You pray and the heavens do not answer. You cry out for help, but your tears seem to disappear into the air. You ask for deliverance and nothing happens. It's in these moments that the enemy whispers, "You've been forgotten." Yet what the enemy doesn't understand, and what most people fail to see, is that God's silence is not rejection, it is preparation. Silence is the sacred language of divine construction. When God says nothing, He is doing something. When heaven seems still, the foundations of your future are being laid in places your eyes cannot see. There are times when your prayers seem to echo off the walls, not because God ignored them, but because He's rearranging the path ahead to fit the answer He's about to send. If He had spoken too soon, you would have settled for less. If He had revealed His plan before you were ready, you would have run in fear. That silence you thought was punishment was actually mercy. God hides His most powerful work in seasons of quiet. Just as a seed must remain buried in darkness before it grows, your soul must rest in the soil of silence before it blossoms into purpose. When you were surrounded by cruelty, God saw it all. When you were betrayed, He watched every act, but instead of striking instantly, He waited. He waited because vengeance without revelation changes nothing. He wanted your heart healed before He handed you justice. He wanted your motives purified before He lifted you up. So while you wept, He worked. While you questioned, He crafted. You thought you were abandoned, but He was aligning your destiny with precision so that the outcome would not just heal you, it would humble those who hurt you. Think of Joseph, thrown into a pit by his brothers and sold into slavery. For years heaven seemed silent, but behind the silence a throne was being prepared in Egypt. God was not ignoring Joseph. He was grooming him for greatness. Every delay, every betrayal, every false accusation was positioning him for a seat of authority. And when the moment came, those who once cast him down had to bow before him. "Boy," he said, "that is what divine silence produces. Vindication born from purpose." You must understand that God's ways are not hurried by human emotion. He will not rush just to soothe your pain if the timing will sabotage your destiny. His silence is not a sign that He is unconcerned. It is proof that He is intentional. You are His investment, and like a master artist, He steps back at times, studying the canvas of your life before He adds the final stroke. That pause, that stillness, it's not absence, it's anticipation. When you prayed for help and the storm only grew stronger, God wasn't ignoring you. He was strengthening your endurance. When you begged for answers and He gave you none, He was teaching you to walk by faith, not sight. When you wanted to strike back at those who hurt you, but His Spirit restrained you, He was protecting your integrity, so that when your victory came, no one could question its divine source. You see, God doesn't prepare blessings for His people. He prepares His people for blessings, and silence is His furnace. It burns away impatience, it refines character, it deepens trust. The cruel season didn't break you. It revealed what couldn't be broken. The quiet nights taught you to hear His whispers. The unanswered prayers taught you that His timing is not delayed, it's deliberate. Now the same silence that once felt unbearable is about to echo with revelation. The silence that once seemed empty will soon resound with justice, because every moment He stayed quiet, He was observing, recording, and planning the turnaround. You are about to discover that nothing was wasted. Not one tear, not one betrayal, not one lonely night. The silence you resented will soon be the reason you bow in awe. For God was not distant, He was developing you. He was preparing a stage large enough for your vindication. He was giving your enemies time to show their true hearts so that when He acts, there will be no doubt who fought for you. And now, as the season shifts, the silence breaks, not with noise, but with manifestation. You will realize that the waiting was worth it. The season of cruelty has ended, and the quiet that once hurt will become the sound of glory rising. God's silence was never His absence. It was the womb of your breakthrough. It was heaven's way of saying, hold on, I'm not done writing your story. And when He finally speaks, the silence will make sense, and the waiting will feel sacred. Because now, everything He promised in secret is about to be revealed in public. There is a painful truth that every soul must one day face. Pain has a way of revealing what comfort conceals. When life is easy, people pretend well. Smiles seem sincere, kindness feels genuine, and loyalty appears unshakable. But when hardship enters your story, the masks begin to slip. It is in the hour of your suffering that true faces emerge. When you are broken and could offer nothing, the hearts around you are tested, and some failed miserably. The cruelty you endured was not a random misfortune. It was a divine filter. It separated the honest from the hollow, the faithful from the false. When you cried and no one came, when you reached out and were met with silence, when you needed compassion but received ridicule, those moments were not just trials, they were revelations. Heaven allowed cruelty to expose character. Those who mocked your pain were showing who they truly were, not who they pretended to be. And while you wept, God took note. He saw the one who smiled in your face and gossiped behind your back. He saw the one who promised loyalty but betrayed you for convenience. He saw the family member who envied your light instead of protecting your heart. He saw the friend who turned your weakness into their weapon. Every word, every action, every hidden cruelty, God recorded it, not because He delights in vengeance, but because His justice is perfect and His memory is eternal. There were days you asked, why would God let me be treated like this? But He allowed it not to punish you, but to reveal those who never belonged in your next chapter. Pain is God's way of pruning. He exposes false connections before promotion, so that when He lifts you, you rise without poison around you. The cruelty of others became the cleansing of your circle. The very people who caused your suffering were unknowingly clearing the path for your peace. Think about it. If everyone who smiled at you had truly loved you, you might have carried counterfeit hearts into your destiny. You might have trusted wrong voices with divine secrets. But their cruelty, though painful, was protection. It tore the disguise from deceit. It unveiled the darkness you were too kind to notice. While you grieved their betrayal, heaven rejoiced at your deliverance. For every act of cruelty revealed what could have destroyed you later. Cruelty is never wasted in the hands of God. He uses it to expose motives and to purify hearts. There were people you loved who secretly hated your strength. There were relatives who clapped for you in public but prayed for your downfall in private. And when they found a chance to wound you, they took it. But that wound became a window. It showed you the truth. They thought their cruelty would crush you, but it only made you see clearly. You lost people, yes, but you gained wisdom. You gained discernment. You gained eyes that see beyond smiles. And now, as you look back, you realize nothing was hidden from God. Every cruel word, every act of disrespect, every false accusation, He saw it all. He allowed their arrogance to mature so their downfall would be undeniable. He let them build the illusion of victory so their exposure would be public. You didn't have to expose them. Life did. You didn't have to defend yourself. Truth did. Because when God takes note of cruelty, he also schedules justice. Remember this. Cruelty always carries consequence. The ones who took advantage of your kindness thought they were clever. They mistook your silence for weakness, your forgiveness for foolishness. But God was watching, and his judgment is not delayed, it's designed. He waits until the harvest of their actions is ripe, and then he allows them to taste what they sowed. Not because he delights in suffering, but because he teaches through consequence. So don't regret the cruelty you experienced. It was a revelation, not a rejection. It showed you who was for you and who was against you. It proved that your worth is not measured by how others treat you, but by how God sustains you. You may have been surrounded by cruelty, but you were never abandoned in it. God stood by you silently, recording every injustice, every mockery, every betrayal. And soon, those who rejoiced at your pain will witness your restoration. The truth is this: cruelty exposes hearts, but it also prepares blessings. For every person who hurt you, God will raise someone who heals you. For every door slammed in your face, he will open one that no enemy can touch. And the same eyes that watched your suffering will soon witness your elevation. Because heaven never overlooks the wounded who stayed pure. Their cruelty was their test. Your endurance was yours. They failed. You passed. And now the record stands before God, written, remembered, and ready to be repaid. When God moves in vengeance, he does not do so with rage, but with righteousness. His revenge is not born from wrath. It is born from justice. The world version of revenge seeks to harm, to humiliate, to destroy. But God's revenge restores balance, heals what was broken, and exposes what was hidden. It is not an explosion of anger. It is a revelation of truth. The same God who saw your pain is now setting the stage for your vindication. And when he acts, the world will know that his justice is never late. It is deliberate, precise, and perfect. For too long, cruelty had its moment. Those who hurt you believed they could act without consequence. They thought they could manipulate, lie, deceive, and walk away untouched. But God never sleeps. He may wait, but he never forgets. His justice may seem delayed, but it is never denied. And now, the season has come when his vengeance will speak. Not through destruction, but through divine reversal. The tables will turn, not because you demanded it, but because heaven decreed it. When God brings justice, he doesn't need to destroy your enemies. He exposes them. He doesn't need to strike them down. He lets them live long enough to witness your elevation. That is true divine revenge. When those who once mocked your faith must watch it produce what they never believed possible. When those who tried to bury your name must see it honored in places they cannot reach. God's vengeance is poetic. It is restoration in the presence of your betrayers. It is peace while your enemies live in restlessness. It is silence that speaks louder than confrontation. You see, when God begins his work of justice, everything shifts, quietly but powerfully. The same people who were comfortable in their wrongdoing will begin to feel unease. The same mouths that once ridiculed you will find no words. The same hands that tried to close your doors will tremble as new doors open for you without their permission. That is how God avenges the innocent, not with thunder, but with transformation. His revenge doesn't ruin lives. It corrects them. It teaches those who did wrong that cruelty carries a cost, and it reminds the broken that faithfulness is never forgotten. There are some who still wonder, why didn't God stop them when they hurt me? The answer is that God doesn't interrupt every act of cruelty. He completes every circle of consequence. He allows people to dig their own holes deep enough that when justice comes, no one can say it wasn't deserved. He doesn't act in haste. He acts in holiness. And when he finally moves, no one escapes the truth of what they've done. The proud will bow, the liars will fall silent, and the innocent will rise. God's revenge is not loud, it's lasting. It's the peace that returns after years of chaos. It's the opportunities that suddenly find you after being rejected. It's the glow on your face that makes those who hurt you whisper in regret. It's the life you live that proves that no cruelty could destroy what God destined for you. His vengeance is not about breaking others down. It's about lifting you up so high that your very existence becomes testimony. When God repays, he restores dignity, honor, and balance to every injustice that was once ignored. Look at Job. He lost everything, his wealth, his children, his reputation, all because cruelty and accusation came disguised as testing. His friends judged him, his wife mocked his faith, and even heaven was silent for a time. But when God moved, he didn't destroy Job's accusers. He elevated Job before their eyes. God's justice didn't come as destruction, it came as double restoration. That's what divine revenge looks like. Not ashes, but abundance. This is what your season looks like now. God is not preparing to destroy anyone for your sake. He is preparing to reveal you. Those who mocked you will see your rise and understand that they were never mocking you. They were mocking the hand of God that rested upon you. Those who thought they could curse your name will live long enough to see it blessed in circles far beyond their reach, and those who thought you would stay broken would be forced to watch you walk in healing that only heaven could give. This season will not be marked by shouting or retaliation. It will be marked by silence, peace, and evidence. You won't have to prove anything to anyone. Your blessings will do that for you. You won't have to speak your truth. Your transformation will. God's revenge is not a sword that cuts, it's a light that exposes. It brings truth where lies once lived, and it replaces shame with glory. So do not crave their downfall, crave your rise. Do not wait for them to fall, wait for God to lift you. His justice will not miss its target. Those who inflicted pain will face their harvest, and you will face your reward. This is the season where heaven rights every wrong, not through destruction, but through divine order. God's vengeance is justice wrapped in mercy. It does not destroy for pleasure, it restores for purpose. And when you see how he balances the scales, you will understand that his silence was not weakness, it was strategy. His timing was not delay, it was design. The cruelty they showed was their seed, and now their harvest comes. But for you, the tears you sowed in faith are about to bloom into a life so radiant that even your pain will bow to your purpose. There is a sacred pattern woven into the way God works. He often allows mockery before manifestation. Before he lifts you, he lets others laugh at you. Before he honors you, he lets them humiliate you. It is not cruelty, it is choreography. God allows ridicule so that when he exalts you, no one will be able to deny the divine hand that raised you. The same mouths that spoke against you will one day speak of you. The same people who dismissed you will have no choice but to recognize that it was God who favored you all along. You see, elevation in God's kingdom is never silent. It is not a private event hidden from the eyes of those who doubted you. It is a public declaration. He lifts his chosen ones not behind closed doors, but before the very faces of those who mocked their faith. When people said you would never rise, God was listening. When they laughed at your prayers, heaven was taking notes. When they ridiculed your hope, God was preparing your vindication. Every insult became an ingredient in your promotion. Every wound became the foundation for your witness. God does not waste humiliation. He transforms it into evidence. The world calls it irony. Heaven calls it justice. The people who once stood above you in pride will have to look up to see you now. Those who turned your pain into entertainment will soon see your peace turn into testimony. This is not revenge, it is revelation. God does not elevate you to humiliate others. He elevates you to display His glory. And when His glory rests upon you, even your enemies will be forced to admit that there was something divine about your endurance. Think of Hannah, mocked for years by Peninnah because she could not bear children. The taunts, the whispers, the laughter, they were cruel. But Hannah's tears became her prayers, and her prayers became her weapon. When God finally remembered her, He did not bless her in secret. He opened her womb publicly so that every voice that once mocked her was silenced by the cry of her miracle. That is how God elevates His chosen, not with noise, but with undeniable results. Many mocked you when you stayed kind in the face of betrayal. They called you naive for forgiving, weak for staying silent, foolish for still believing in good. But what they couldn't see was that you were being tested for promotion. They misread your humility as helplessness, your patience as passivity, your faith as fantasy. Yet while they were laughing, God was lifting. While they were gossiping, God was guiding. You were not standing still, you were being positioned. And now the season has come where your faith will speak louder than their mockery ever did. The ones who doubted you will see the doors God opens for you and wonder how it happened. They will see you walk through blessings they thought were impossible and realize that they misjudged the quiet one. Because divine elevation is not noisy, it's undeniable. You won't need to announce your success. Your peace will announce it for you. You won't need to defend your journey. Your glow will testify. You won't need to say a word. The favor of God on your life will speak languages no critic can silence. This is why God tells you to stay silent when mocked. It is not weakness, it is wisdom. If you argue with those who mock you, you descend to their level. But if you let God respond, He will do it in a way that leaves no debate. He will bless you so visibly that your enemies will choke on their own laughter. The same lips that once cursed you will be forced to bless you, even unwillingly. Because when God lifts a person, no one can pull them down. Do not despise the season when they laughed. It was necessary. Their mockery became the background against which your testimony now shines. Without their doubt, your rise would have looked ordinary. But now, because they mocked you so confidently, your elevation will look miraculous. God will ensure that your story is told, not to glorify you, but to glorify His faithfulness through you. Your life will become the proof that those who wait on the Lord are never put to shame. Remember, those who mocked Noah's ark were the same ones pounding on its doors when the rain began to fall. Those who mocked Joseph's dreams were the same ones bowing before his throne. Those who mocked David's youth were the same ones singing of his victory. And those who mocked you will be the same ones whispering, "Surely the Lord is with them." So do not seek to prove yourself. Your elevation will do that. Do not try to silence them. Your blessings will. God is not lifting you just to reward you. He is lifting you to remind the world that faith still works, that purity still pays off, and that cruelty never wins. Every eye that saw you broken will soon see you restored. Every tongue that mocked your pain will witness your peace. And when they ask how you made it through, all you will say is, God did it, because this is His justice, not to humiliate your enemies, but to honor your endurance. Your rise will not be revenge, it will be revelation. The season of mockery is ending, and the stage of divine elevation is set. Watch closely, for the same ones who once laughed will soon be silent, not out of fear, but out of awe. Every tear you cried in silence carried more power than you realized. The world may have seen weakness, but heaven saw worship. Your tears were not signs of defeat, they were the language of your soul speaking to God in a way words never could. They watered the soil of your destiny. Every drop that fell from your weary eyes became a seed planted in the ground of divine promise, a seed that heaven is now preparing to multiply. When you cried alone in the dark, thinking no one cared, heaven was listening. Angels were writing down every moment of sorrow, every night of anguish, every time you broke, but still chose to believe. You may have thought those tears were wasted, but nothing in God's kingdom is ever wasted. He collects every tear, not as a reminder of your pain, but as evidence of your faith. Those tears, though born in suffering, carry resurrection power. They will return to you, not as grief, but as glory. God often allows the righteous to weep before he lets them reap, because tears purify the heart. They strip away pride, entitlement, and illusion, leaving behind humility, compassion, and strength. You didn't just cry because of pain. You cried because you still cared, because your heart remained pure in a cruel world. And that purity, that tenderness of spirit, is something God cannot overlook. He treasures the tears of those who suffer righteously, for they are the proof that goodness still breathes in a world that often celebrates evil. When cruelty broke your trust and betrayal shattered your peace, your tears became prayers. You might not have had the strength to speak, but your tears spoke louder than words. They told heaven, "I'm hurt, but I still trust you. I'm broken, but I still believe you have a plan." And God heard every one of those unspoken prayers. He saw your trembling hands, your silent sobs, your quiet endurance, and He recorded them in eternity. For the same God who said He bottles your tears has promised to turn them into a harvest of joy. You will not weep forever. Those tears were not the end of your story. They were the beginning of your breakthrough. What you sowed in sorrow will return as laughter. What you gave in tears will come back as triumph. You cried because you loved purely, gave selflessly, and believed sincerely. And now heaven is preparing your harvest. The pain that once made you weep will one day make you worship, because every tear was a seed, and seeds never stay buried. Think of Hannah, who cried bitterly before the altar, mocked by others for her barrenness. Her tears were misunderstood as drunkenness, but they were intercession. She poured out her soul before God, and He turned her weeping into rejoicing. Out of her tears came Samuel, a prophet, a legacy, a living reminder that tears produce miracles when surrendered to God. The same pattern repeats in your life. Every time you cried but refused to curse, every time you wept but still forgave, every time you hurt but stayed faithful, you planted something eternal. There are seasons where you feel like you're crying alone, unseen and unheard. But tears are never unseen by heaven. They travel faster than words. They reach God's throne instantly because they come from the deepest part of you. When the world abandoned you, your tears kept heaven close. They were the bridge between your suffering and God's justice. And now that bridge will carry blessings back to you. Blessings pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Understand this: when God begins to multiply your tears, He doesn't just give you what you lost, He gives you better. Those who laughed when you cried will watch you rise with grace they cannot comprehend. Those who caused your pain will witness the beauty that bloomed from it. They will see how the same heart they broke became the source of peace they can't find. Because God never forgets the tears of his children. He turns them into testimonies that silence the proud and strengthen the weary. Your tears were never a waste of emotion, they were an investment. Each one carried meaning, each one had value, and each one became a promise. Heaven will repay you in ways the world cannot measure. The people who caused those tears will face their harvest, but you will face restoration. You will wake one day and realize the pain no longer hurts, the memory no longer burns, and the past no longer controls you. That's the miracle of divine multiplication. Your tears watered the field of your destiny, and now the harvest is ready. So hold your head high, child of God. You did not cry in vain. You were sowing the seeds of a future that only heaven could design. And when the time comes, your joy will overflow, not because the pain never existed, but because it was transformed. The hands that once wiped away your tears will soon be lifted in gratitude. You will see that every tear had purpose, every drop was counted, every moment was sacred, and every cry was heard. You will smile again, not because life became easy, but because you'll see the faithfulness of God shining through your scars. You'll look back at those nights of weeping and whisper, "It was worth it." For the soil that was watered by your tears will soon bloom with blessings no cruelty could ever prevent. There is a reason God warns, "Vengeance is mine." It is not because he wants to deprive you of justice. It's because he knows how dangerous revenge is when handled by human hands. When pain sits too long in the heart, it can turn into poison. Anger becomes bitterness, and bitterness blinds the soul. You cannot heal and strike at the same time. That is why God tells you to step aside, not because he ignores your suffering, but because he is preparing to avenge it perfectly. His justice is not impulsive, it is pure. His timing is not delayed, it is deliberate. When you've been wronged deeply, the temptation to retaliate feels natural. You replay their cruelty in your mind and imagine what you'd say, what you'd do, how you'd make them feel the pain they caused. You want balance. You want them to understand. But human revenge rarely brings peace. It only prolongs the wound. You cannot heal while holding the sword. So God, in his mercy, removes the sword from your hand and says, "Let me handle this." Because when he moves, he does not just settle the score. He rewrites the entire story. You must remember that God sees the layers you cannot see. He knows what was said behind closed doors, what was plotted in secret, what was whispered when you weren't there to defend yourself. He sees motives, not just actions. He knows why they did what they did, and he knows what it will take for them to learn. His justice is not about hurting them, it's about healing you. He will not let their cruelty go unanswered, but he will repay in a way that purifies both sides, exposing darkness and elevating light. Revenge, driven by pain, satisfies the flesh but starves the soul. It may bring temporary pleasure, but it never brings true peace. That's why you must let go and let God take over. When you stay silent and surrender your case to heaven, you're not weak, you're wise. Silence is not submission, it's strategy. You're allowing the divine to do what human hands could never do, deliver justice that restores without destroying you in the process. Think of David. He was hunted by Saul, falsely accused, betrayed by those he served faithfully. Yet when he had the chance to kill Saul, he refused. He said, "I will not lay my hand on the Lord's anointed." That act of restraint was not weakness, it was divine wisdom. David understood that if he took revenge, he would step out of God's will. And because he chose patience over retaliation, God himself elevated him to the throne. Saul's cruelty ended, but David's destiny began. This is what happens when you leave justice in God's hands. You lose nothing, and you gain everything. When you refuse revenge, you're not letting them win. You're allowing God to reveal the truth, and truth is a sharper weapon than any act of retaliation. The same people who thought they had escaped consequences will soon face the mirror of their own actions. God's justice never misses its target. It may take time, but time is part of his plan. Sometimes he lets the proud rise high, not to reward them, but to make their fall undeniable. You may not see his hand at work, but trust that heaven's clock is ticking. Every lie told, every wound inflicted, every unjust word spoken, all of it is being recorded, not for your revenge, but for his righteous reckoning. You don't need to expose them, life will. You don't need to fight them, truth will. When God judges, it's complete, no corner left unlit, no secret left untouched. His justice is not a single act. It's a divine unfolding that restores everything cruelty tried to take from you. Letting go of revenge does not mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it define you. It means choosing peace over pride, grace over grudges, purpose over pain. And when God sees that you trust him enough to stay still, he fights in ways you could never imagine. He opens doors no enemy can shut. He gives you blessings so radiant that your former pain looks small in comparison. That is divine revenge. When God blesses you so abundantly that even your enemies must admit he is real. There will come a day when you will understand why he told you to stay silent. You'll see the wisdom in his patience. You'll witness his justice unfold with such precision that you'll thank him for not letting you act too soon. You will see them face the fruits of their own choices, not because you wished for it, but because the law of heaven ensures that every act of cruelty returns to its sender. That is how the universe stays balanced under God's hand. So release the desire to make them pay. You are not their judge. You are their lesson. Let God write the ending. Let him handle what your heart cannot carry. His justice is complete. Not one wound overlooked, not one tear ignored. And when he finishes, you won't just have justice. You'll have peace. The kind of peace that no revenge could ever bring. Because true victory isn't when they fall, it's when you rise without hate in your heart. That's when heaven smiles, because you've proven that grace is stronger than cruelty and love is stronger than vengeance. And that, my friend, is the kind of justice that lasts forever. There is a sacred moment when heaven decides the suffering has served its purpose, a moment when God whispers, "Enough." It is then that everything begins to shift. The tears that once fell in secret become the waters of new beginnings. The wounds that once bled with pain begin to glow with wisdom. The very story that once broke your heart becomes the evidence that God was present all along. You may not have seen it happening, but every act of cruelty was being quietly transformed into the architecture of your restoration. When the season of cruelty ends, it doesn't end with noise. It ends in stillness. The same kind of stillness that comes after a storm, not silence born of emptiness, but silence filled with peace. You wake one morning and realize the pain no longer has power. The same memories that once brought tears now bring understanding. You no longer crave revenge, you crave purpose. That's how you know your restoration has begun. It doesn't start when the wrongdoers apologize. It starts when their actions no longer define you. And yet, God's justice doesn't stop there. Restoration is not just about healing you. It's about humbling them. Divine justice always carries two sides, redemption for the wounded and revelation for the wicked. Those who mocked you will witness the evidence of your faith. Those who betrayed you will see how their betrayal built the very strength they envied. Those who laughed at your downfall will one day fall silent, not because they were silenced by shame, but because they'll finally see the hand of God they once ignored. Restoration in the hands of God is poetic. He doesn't just bring back what was lost. He replaces it with something far greater. He gives beauty for ashes, honor for humiliation, peace for torment. The people who once caused your pain will look at your joy and realize that they didn't break you. They built the platform for your becoming. Your restoration will not just lift you, it will awaken their conscience. They will come to understand what cruelty truly costs when it touches a heart protected by God. Remember Joseph again, betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, forgotten in a prison cell. For years it seemed as though cruelty had won, but when God's timing arrived, Joseph's restoration came in a single sweep of divine favor. The same brothers who once threw him into the pit stood trembling before his throne. They came seeking mercy from the one they had wronged. That is divine realization. When those who once wounded you must face the grace of the one they tried to destroy. And in that moment, Joseph didn't need to speak vengeance. His elevation said everything. That is how God ends a cruel season, not with revenge, but with revelation. He allows those who wronged you to see what they lost when they mistreated you. They will see the peace they forfeited, the blessings they pushed away, the relationship they destroyed, and the light they tried to dim, now shining brighter than ever. That realization becomes their silent judgment. They will remember every unkind word, every betrayal, every act of pride, and understand too late that they touch something sacred. When God restores you, he does it publicly, not because he seeks to humiliate others, but because he wants the world to witness his justice. Your restoration becomes a sermon, a divine statement that no cruelty can cancel what God has chosen. The same mouths that once gossiped will speak your name in awe. The same hearts that once envied will feel conviction, and the same eyes that once looked down on you will look up, not in worship, but in realization.